Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, helping higher education marketing leaders share knowledge about learning, strategies, and tactics that are relevant today. See what you can learn today by listening to one of our episodes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, hosted by Concept 3D. On this podcast, we like to discuss topics around creating and capturing demand in higher education specifically. Before we jump in to our interview, I'd love to just go over what Concept 3D does. Concept 3D has served over 600 happy customers in higher education with our best-in-class interactive maps, virtual tours, and localist events. Improve your campus communications, student engagement, and recruitment with our powerful solutions. My name is Shiro, and I'll be your host today. And today I'm super excited to have Dominic Monte join us. Dom is the creative director and design strategist at Ursinus College, and he is also an adjunct instructor on advanced web design and strategy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. And I love to ask this question lately around, what do you love about higher ed? But I think, I wanted to also ask you a little bit more about your career shift into higher ed, because I think it's an amazing story. And so I think you'll cover it there, but do you want to give us a quick background on how you got into higher ed?
Sure. I would say, so I spent 15 years working in corporate in a similar role to what I'm doing right now. And one of the things that we had done was working with colleges on a sponsorship level. And I really started to really fall in love with the idea of being in higher education and just the purpose of like a nonprofit world in general. So fast forward a little bit, some circumstances happened where I kind of fell into a spot where I was looking for a new position. And I used those connections to sort of get involved with Ursinus. And it's been great since. And it's been 4 years and I've had a really, really good time with it. And it's been all I really kind of hoped it would be. And then one of my favorite things about it is my whole career sort of shifted. I also fell into a teaching opportunity at a separate institution where the advanced web design and strategy class comes in. And it really, I feel that I love the idea of working and designing with a purpose in mind that's not necessarily profit driven. Obviously money is important and all that other stuff, but the overall mission is more about the students, and everything that we do is about helping the student experience one way or the other, whether it's print, digital, on campus, all of which falls under my team's work.
That's amazing. And, I actually haven't had, I think you're the first person I've interviewed that's had the title of creative director. Can you tell us a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like? I'm very curious.
So one day is not usually the same as the next, so it's one of the harder questions I ever get. But so my team, we work on admission marketing. We work on we're a smaller school, so I know larger schools will have different communications and marketing teams within different business units. Units. We have one team here that sort of services everybody to an extent. So my team will work on admission marketing materials, print and digital, for the admission marketing group. And then we also have alumni relations, our advancement team, where we work on annual reports and videos for them. But at the same time, we also have a campus to deal with. So we design stuff for the on-campus experience. So in a way, my team addresses the pre, the during, and the postgraduate or student that comes through here. And I like working on the small team in the small school, and it really gives us that opportunity to sort of see the big picture.
That's amazing. So, it sounds like you're in a position where you work across all the departments and you have great communication along all of those departments. Is that a culture that was already in place when you joined?
I think so. If it wasn't completely in place, it was something I think we're always striving for. We just had our new president inauguration about a week and a half ago, where that's almost one of the rallying cries that's coming from her tenure here. And I think it's something that we've always nobody's ever really worked against it, but it's always been something that we're striving towards. And I think having just this one central communications team, which encompasses not just creative. It has an editorial, we have news, we have social media, that that we're really kind of in touch with everybody around campus. Like I deal with faculty members as much as I do with our alumni relations department. So
That's amazing. I literally just came off a conversation with a future guest, Brian Piper, and he's more of an analytics person, or at least we discussed analytics, and he was, telling us how the analytics are bringing together a lot of the marketing for a school. And so just a theme I keep hearing, so that's great.
Yeah, and I know we have a focus on that too. That's not my expertise. I will help with. I will analyze it, and I will work towards that stuff. But we have those touches around campus as well.
That's amazing. I know in a previous conversation we talked a lot about personalization and why it's so important in marketing, especially in higher education. And can you tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on that, and how maybe you're implementing that today in your day-to-day or in your job?
Yeah, so I mean, personalization for us is key. One of our, if you just flip through any of our materials, we talk about that one-to-one experience, or that really personal experience that students should expect when they get to campus. And I think it's important to be addressing that before they get to campus, even in small little touches. And I know this is going to bleed into your second question a little bit, but one of the big things that we do is we personalize some of our flagship pieces that kind of go out from an admission marketing standpoint. On the print side, we're working with print vendors that I have contacts with and I've had really great relationships with. We worked our way so that it was such a minimal increase that we're able to personalize our view books. And we wouldn't have been able to do this without their help. But what we were able to do is just create this touch point where these juniors in high school and seniors in high school are getting 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 view books a week, maybe a day.
Right.
And if they can pull it out of their mailbox, and when they see it, that their name is right on the cover of that. I mean, it's a small little thing, but it's something that if they remember a day later, a week later, that happened, that they might go back and look for it and look through it. Like, I know that people aren't necessarily going to read, not everybody is going to read every word in every piece, but to have that touch point where you have such a spread of things and really kind of like a cluttered mailbox that kind of comes in, to be able to make that touch point to kind of and really go through. There's a principle that I teach in my class, and I kind of pull and put into everything that we do, where it's the job to be done as part of your UI set. And it's always that principle is, it's not just what's in front of you, it's what's before it and what's after it. That your job to be done is to take you all the way through. And what that point is, even if it's just a simple personalization of a view book, it gets them to think a little bit more, 1 second more, that kind of takes them to that next step. And to me, that's kind of the goal of all of our print materials, is it's not necessarily a standalone piece. We want somebody to take a next step in that journey, whether it's the next print postcard they get, maybe they get an email, maybe they see a social media post. All of that, we don't know exactly the order they're going to get it in, but we know that we want them to remember the experiences they had with us.
That's amazing. And I know we talked about standing out from the noise, and the noise in this case is all the other schools studying view books, right, that are not personalized.
Yeah,
That's
and most, if not all of, and I will caveat this that I don't know this for an absolute fact. Most people that are getting our view books have raised their hand wanting our view books. So we don't necessarily blindly send them out, but I know lots of other places do. And so to get that, we really need to we're competing against these other institutions that the student wants to hear from, and the ones that they don't want to hear from. So we need to be louder.
That's amazing. And so what you're saying is you're taking a targeted approach, right? You're not just sending it to anyone in your list. You're sending to a select few. Is that right?
So that's where I learned. So we started that way. We started with only taking part of it and doing it, but we found that it gets such good response that we're doing it. Everybody. So anybody who raises their hand and says that they want more information is going to get that same treatment.
Gotcha. So you ran an experiment and the results were good. So why would you not scale it or make it a bigger program? I love that. That's great. Thanks for sharing that with me. That was a huge new thing I learned around print material because I live in the digital world now, and like I feel like it's just something I always overlook.
Yeah, one of the things that I do, and I really kind of like take it seriously when it comes to being the creative director, is not just focusing on one thing. And really, I want those lines to be blurred, because like you can take the same principles and attach it to both print, digital, social media, video. There's no difference from a higher level when it comes to that stuff. It's only when you get into the tactical and the details where you have just logistical differences.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think, along the same lines, you mentioned visual language and keeping that consistent is a big aspect of your job, directly related to what you just said.
Yep.
Why is that so important? Could you also explain what visual language means to someone like me who isn't as familiar?
Yeah, so that's the essence of my function here, and any creative director's function really is really taking in all of what's going on around us and simplifying it. And then, most everybody has heard of the style guide or brand book, but that book, that experience tells so much of our story, and like the visuals and the words have to line up there, because that's what everywhere across campus, even the companies, or not the companies, I'm sorry, the departments that are like that we don't necessarily deal with, go to that source, and they're going there to make sure that what they're doing is on, even if they're just doing pens and like a lapel pin or something for an event, like all of that sort of touches it. So we need to make sure that like we have all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted, and that we're addressing all of this stuff. A good brand book, to be successful with it, needs to encompass all of this stuff. It needs to be a design system so that you're allowing freedom in there, and that you take this system and you're able to easily attach it to web, to social, to video, and to print. Because like it's impossible for one particular team, especially at a small college, to have their hands on everything. But to know that most everybody's at least going to the same source time and time again to get that information to get started with, knows that once everything goes out into the world, most likely either the student or the alumni or the parent or whoever is going to see something that we have intended them to see, and the way that we want them to see it.
That's amazing. I'm glad you mentioned that last bit, because I was going to ask, forgive me if it's a dumb question, but what is the impact on what is the impact on the outcome of that, right? Of keeping the grade consistency, developing that visual language that's consistent with any messaging. Like, what is the impact on it, like from a student perspective, from a parent or alumni perspective? I'm curious to hear your thoughts there.
Well, so that's important. There's a very important distinctions when it comes to those things in there. Our advancement / alumni relations group, it does not have the same needs as our admission and marketing group, and the way that we design things here, we allow for flexibility because they are different audiences, and so they're going to absorb information a little bit differently, maybe a little bit more traditionally if it's just print, or if it's a little bit more progressive if it's just digital. We're doing things now, or colleges do things now that they never would have done 15 years ago, and so that all needs to, and that's where I work with our marketing group, with the editorial group, with our video production guy, and really to figure out what's the language that we want to talk about when it comes to this particular piece. Like I've taken like communication classes, like my graduate work, and like where they talk about all of that stuff. And at the time when they did that, it was so high level to me, I didn't quite understand it until I got to a place like this, where we're addressing so many different groups that span so many different like just demographics, and like whether it's socio or economic, or if it's generational or whatever. That you have to really sort of like, there's a lot of feedback that you need to get for that, because like obviously a smaller team doesn't necessarily have the same experiences that we're reaching out to, which is again another big important thing. But getting that constant feedback, talking to students here about what their experiences are, and really kind of just seeing where things go from there, and really listening to them and meeting them where they are is important. And like that's going to get our messages out, regardless of the audience.
Gotcha. And I know, we talked a little bit more about print so far. How do you bring the same like consistency and the principles to the website, and making sure that there's a fluid journey both on and offline.
So we have we have somebody who is the director of the web stuff, like at the same level I am, and we also have our IT department that sort of we work together with. And whenever we embark on anything major, we work together very well, and we have to and knowing that we all have that same goal in mind, and we all have that respect for what each other does, that we're able to go through this. And I'm able to take my experiences, my past experiences, and taking my experiences from my classes that I teach elsewhere and bring it into this, knowing that the colors look nice, but what happens there? Having that whole, and again, I mentioned this a few minutes ago, was taking those general principles from what you would do from a standard UI practice and applying that to everything that you do. It makes it pretty seamless. And it's seamless from one to the other, to go from print to digital or digital to print. You realize that there's nothing that's not possible when you do that.
Gotcha. That's great. And yeah, again, I think we talked about it, but having that alignment with other teams seems critical to addressing my question around keeping things seamless. That's great. I have another question. So just creative director, what is there something you're really proud of that you've implemented in the last couple of years that you've been with them?
So I think the biggest thing that I've really helped implement was that we just redesigned our admission marketing materials again, but we still applied that same personalization to it. I think so that's really kind of like the centerpiece of what we do. A lot of what I do is just that admission marketing stuff. Whether it's, and I think I don't mean stuff as in it's not worthwhile by any means. It's but there's more than print. There's a ton of other stuff that goes along with it. That's probably the biggest thing that kind of goes through it. I think the biggest thing that I'm necessarily proud of is how we're able to bring together the print side of things along with the on-campus experience, which is just as important. To kind of, because we don't want to get them here and then kind of leave them here realizing that there's a big disconnect, because that connection needs to be consistent all the way through their experiences. Even if we evolve the design and change the colors and change how we're using fonts and all that other stuff, that's all tactical stuff that's important, but really it's not the essence of what we're doing, which is making that transition from the prospect to student to alumni. A visual journey that kind of takes them all the way through, and it's a nice, consistent, and experience, not just from a visual standpoint, but from a language standpoint.
Love it. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for helping me understand a little bit more about your world and a little bit more about print, because I just don't think about it. So that's really good. Yeah. I was wondering where some of our listeners could connect with you.
So you can find me on LinkedIn, or you could just find me right on Ursinus' communications page.
Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I know you mentioned you were adjunct instructor as well, and so you're teaching advanced web design and strategy as well, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'll give a nice little shout out to my students. I'm sure they'll see this.
That's awesome. Great. Well, that was Dom Monte, and thanks so much for joining us. To our listeners today, thank you so much, Dom, for joining us and being our guest speaker today.
Anytime. I'm glad I could be part of it.
That's awesome. And for our listeners, please catch us on the next one. And if you need a tour, campus map, or localist events, you know who to reach out to. Thank you so much.